What we will do is I will give a short presentation and I will involve you as well a little bit because it's already late in the day and we need to keep the energy up and then we will have to finish off an interesting panel discussion to try and wrap everything up. And I want to as well hear from you and learn from you what really works on the ground, because I'm a little bit tired of attending hundreds of seminars and then there seems to be a little action following on from it. So I want to ask the question, what really works? And we heard what works in Malaysia in terms of solar thermal. We heard what works in Malaysia in terms of rainwater harvesting. I will share some additional examples. I decided not to do any PowerPoints because, sometimes it can be more direct if you don't use any PowerPoints. So I'll do a very direct and interactive presentation session with you. I'll keep it short so we have time for the discussion, and we will then finish round about 6 o'clock, even though it says in the program 6:15. But if you are also eager and have a lot of questions for us at the end, then we might finish a little bit later. So we will see. Now, climate change, I think I don't need to go too much in detail. When I look at climate change, the problem with climate change is it's a very complex subject. The Earth has gone through natural fluctuations. I've just been in Germany. It was very cold there, and I read an article this morning in a German newspaper like, whoa, the sun shine is different, the energy from the sun is not all coming through. We might face a small temporary mini ice age. But then you hear all sorts of theories out there. It's a very complex subject. There is no simplistic, because of A, we have B type conclusion. That's why we have many, many theories out there. There is a consensus that due to human activity, especially in the last 150 years, the days since the industrialization, what we have on the planet is the human species taking out from Mother Nature what Mother Nature has produced over millions of years. Oil, gas, coal. And we are kind of trying to squeeze it out of the planet as fast as we can to fuel our current model of economic growth. I'm sometimes wondering, if we would be the little green man on the moon, look at the planet 300 years ago before industrialization kicked off, maybe you could see blue the oceans and then green the lavish forests and the land on which very, very few humans were doing some activity that was not significantly impacting the biodiversity and the balance of the planet itself. But what you see now is craters, mining for coal, for all sorts of minerals, now as well going into Africa everywhere. Then we have all sorts of platforms on the ocean. Occasionally they blow up, such as the BP platform in the US. That's cost them many, many billions of US dollars and nearly killed the business off in terms of their share price. We have gas exploration. The latest thing is shale gas, where a lot of money is being spent into changing as well the pricing now in the US. US was a major importer. Now they might even become a balanced economy in terms of being able to have their own energy. But what we see on the planet is huge human activity. And this human activity shaping and changing the look and feel of the planet. Even here in Malaysia, you go to Ipoh, you see the limestone hills being chopped down to produce the construction industry's most favorite material, cement. Did you know that cement production is about 6% of the world's CO2 emissions? Much more than all of the planes in the world together. Sorry guys, can you try and be a bit more silent? It's quite noisy coming from there. Thanks. So, we see that happening on the planet. Humans interfering with the natural balance of the earth. We as a human species, within a short period of time of human civilization, we are taking a lot out that took millions of years to produce, and we are loading up the quality and the concentration of pollutants in the air. Just a little intermezzo on the question that Prof was asking early on, air quality, indoor air quality. Anecdotal story. I came to Malaysia 9 years ago. I lived in Times Square. You know what? I was suspicious about the indoor air quality. I hired a guy with one of these nice machines where you can measure indoor air quality. He came in, he said, hey, how come? You're my first customer, private individual in a house that is paying me. Normally, I only get customers that are forced by legislation to measure indoor air quality in a factory. You are my first private guy. I said, I want to know whether I'm killing myself sleeping in this place or not. And that is, putting it on the flip side, a lot of residential developers tell me, oh, you know, no demand in Malaysia for green buildings. Nobody is asking for it. I'm asking them, have you ever promoted, marketed, sold your green buildings in a language, in a value proposition that your customers can understand and benefit from? My friend lives in one of the most famous GBI Platinum certified first residential building in Malaysia. He said, hey buddy, I'm living in a green building, green man, you should come and visit me. I said, so what's green about the building? Oh, we've got some recycling system on the ground floor, but other than that, I'm not so sure. Isn't that amazing? He didn't know what was the benefit or what was the practical aspects of this building in terms of the green features. So coming back to the air quality, what I've told one or two developers, but they didn't believe me because they haven't done it yet, so the opportunity is still there. I said to them, if you have a show house, you have an indoor air quality monitoring device there, you have customers coming in, target young families with young children and babies, show them the measuring. If you can guarantee zero volatile organic carbons, zero formaldehyde, zero toxic content that keep people cancer, allergies, and all these other diseases that the human species is loaded with nowadays because of chemicals coming in through water, through food, through air, then you should have a value proposition that should be attractive for this type of customers with young children to potentially want to buy from you because you're giving them a much superior product. You're giving them peace of mind that they don't have to worry that their little kids breathe in every night loads of nasty stuff. So coming back to my story, Times Square, when I was there, I was suspicious because your ability to ventilate, you could open up the windows like that, and that was it. So I got the guy in, he came in, you know, I paid him 300 ringgit for his job, and he said, oh man, you know, it's okay lah actually, the air quality inside, you know, the carbon monoxide and, you know, CO2, FOC was all, you know, kind of normal, what you would expect, below dangerous levels. Then the interesting thing was we went to check the fresh air coming from the outside. Guess what? The fresh air was quite highly polluted. Because we are living in an inner city environment with loads of cars driving around, so that pollution from the cars, especially here in Malaysia, you still have old buses, old lorries with heavy toxic stuff coming out. You can see it when you drive along. You can smell it certain times. And especially the carbon black that they are pushing out. There seems to be limited enforcement in terms of cleaning these guys up, but we could pick that up on the measurement of the fresh air coming in. So when Prof early on said, I agree with you in a rural setting that the fresh air coming in should bring in good air quality inside of your place. And I personally prefer a breathing house. And that is the typical kampung style in Malaysia, to have the fresh air delivering cooling and as well good air quality. But if you live in an inner city environment, the situation might be different. And that was the one building that you were talking about, the one in Malacca from Harry and Stephanie Boswell. They had an enclosed European system in a way. But then they had these funny air wells. They were going through concrete pipe. The air was coming in at the entrance at 29 Celsius, but by the time it went through the concrete pipe coming into the house, it had a temperature of 26 something. So again, the earth and the concrete under the building was cooling it down. So it was quite an interesting combination. And it was fresh air from the outside from a golf course, so I'm sure if they would have done air quality measuring, it would have been better. Coming back to the question of climate change. Now the human species is the dominant factor on the planet. 300 years ago, the influence of the human species was benign. Full stop. Even if you look at the landscape of Malaysia. 300 years ago, the pygmy elephants running around in the rainforest didn't need to worry about potentially being, intoxicated because they might be seen as a disease in a plantation environment. If you look at the landscape of Malaysia, we still have huge forest cover, but only if you define the monoculture palm oil plantation as part of forest. This is economic development. In Europe and in some other places, palm oil is seen as the main destructive force of the rainforest. I think we have to be realistic. In a country like Malaysia, it's a very powerful way of economic value generation. But then the question is, how far should we go? What is the right balance between preservation and economic development? If we would have more of those waterfalls that might have been in the Selangor area with fresh water supply remaining, that might have been turned into residential housing areas or palm oil plantations, would we need the 10 billion pipe from Pahang to Selangor? If we would have more rainwater harvesting, more efficiency, would we need to spend that money? Just some questions up there. I see climate change in my kampung in terms of weather predictability. Where I come from in Germany, when I was a kid, I had 3 months of solid snow every winter, end of December till end of March. If there was stuff coming from the sky, it was more snow. I cannot remember a single winter in my youth where there was suddenly a change. When I was in Germany last week, it was -5. We had snow. My mother keeps complaining because she is a bit sensitive towards massive changes of temperature. She told me the week before we were sitting outside of on the balcony because it was 15 plus. Within a couple of days, a switch of 20 Celsius lower. I cannot remember that happening when I was younger. Every winter I had about, in average, 3 months of snow. So the clear weather patterns, the predictability seems to have gone. When I ask people here in Malaysia, they tell me exactly the same. There used to be clear seasons, rainy season, dry season. There were clear patterns. People in the plantation industry, the rubber plantation guys, they used to plant according to the seasons. Now, there are still some type of seasons there, but not so clear-cut anymore. The guys in the plantation industry don't plant anymore according to the seasons that they perceive. So obviously the predictability of weather patterns has been shaken. And I think that is linked to the fact that the human species has such a big impact in putting that balance out of sync. There are naturally fluctuating influencing factors. If you have a volcano like Mount Pinatubo blowing up, that will have a significant impact for a certain period of time because you suddenly have loads of particles in the sky that impact the ability of the sun to shine onto the earth. So it's not a clear-cut simple science, but as far as I'm concerned, there's enough evidence there that we, the human species, need to adopt and change. We are adopting to a certain extent with spending a lot of money on infrastructure. It looks with Kyoto Protocol and climate change negotiations not really having delivered big results in terms of human species changing. People seem to want to get ready to spend money to adjust. One climate scientist, which is quite famous, I think Hansen is his name, he predicts 2010, 2100, we could see up to 5 meters sea level rises. I've seen some recent videos of big chunks of icebergs close to the Arctic falling into the water. I'm not sure how much impact that will have, but let's just assume 5 meters higher sea level. The old towns of Malacca and Penang will be underwater. Then we would have to build very expensive concrete dams, I guess, to prevent the water from actually flooding those areas. The fact that we are not 100% sure is, I think, the reason why the human species is not willing to pay the costs. But if we look at practical things in Malaysia, things like low-cost houses that are not really very nice to live in because they're extremely hot, at least those should be the things that we should start addressing if we have the simple tools here that are available. I have 3 examples in mind besides some of the things that Prof already mentioned in terms of the UKM. I was visiting that research area there recently, and I recommend you to go there because they've done a lot of stuff on solar, even solar concentrator technology, then wind harvesting. There's a lot of things you can see there in Bangi, just on the roadside. But one tip, if you drive there and want to go in, cannot. I tried that some time ago. I even told the security guard there, hey, I'm the orang hijau, I need to check the green things. No chance, I couldn't get in. So you have to make an appointment first with CIRAIC to actually get into this area where they're researching all of these technologies. So those questions, how can we make it happen? One case study, I stayed in that building 2 years ago. I went on a hybrid motorbike, electric and fuel, from KL to Sungai Petani, just to demonstrate, even with a more eco-friendly bicycle, you can go up all the way. I gave a presentation there, and then Dato B, I think is his name, he owns this Cinta Sayang resort there, and he gave a talk about what they did. And he said to me, hey Matthias, I would like you to stay one night in our sky residences, FOC, free of charge. I just want you to experience it. I said, okay la, why not? And they offered me a free golfing session as well. They wanted to look after me, and I was blown away. They did, before they constructed that building, wind dynamics flow analysis. They used 3 of your 5 or 6 points that you put down there, shading. They have no room in the building where directly the sunlight is heating up the building itself. So they use the right positioning. They have kind of construction where, you know, you have a bit of overhanging balcony areas. Then they have a wind tunnel in the middle. And every 7th level they have broken open an area so that the wind circulation can be maximized. I stayed in there, opening up the balcony and opening the door to the wind tunnel, and it feels like a natural fan is blowing. And I enjoyed having the windows open and listening to the sound of nature, and I stayed there, and I didn't need to use a fan, and I didn't need to use an aircon. That's an example of a building, a high-rise, that was designed with all of those things in mind. And Dato B told me, if I can do it here in Sungai Petani, then with our property prices, nobody in KL should have an excuse not to do it. He said it cost him a little bit more with this design, but he actually has a much higher value product. He has a totally different quality of life for his residents and for the people who stay there. Then, I think it was 5 or 6 years ago, after I was some time in Malaysia, I met this Chinese guy, Charles Yi, from Butterworth, and he told me, hey, I'm using these lightweight aerated concrete blocks, and I want to show you the high-rise we're building now. And this is a high-rise in Butterworth. It's called Vista Bay View. Then 2 years ago, he asked me, come back, have a look at the building. I went in there into an empty unit, and I was surprised how cool it felt. But I wanted to do the acid test by actually speaking with the residents there. The first family that I got, I didn't tell them I was like a green guy. I just pretended I want to rent there and find out from them how high is the electricity bill. So I asked this Chinese family, they just came home from shopping, and I said to them, so how much do I have to calculate for electricity bill if I move in here? And they said, oh yeah, you know, we have 2 big fridges, but actually our electricity bill for our 4 people family is only 80 ringgit. I said, wow, how come? How come? Yeah, we have, we use the, what is it called in Malaysia? The gate. Like you have one door and then you have a metal gate. The grill, yeah, grill, exactly. We have the grill closed, but we have the door open, we have the windows open, so we get a nice little wind. But anyway, even if we have the windows closed at night, it's cool here. But we have another condo in Penang, we come home, we open up the door, wow, it feels so hot, we straight away switch on the aircon. But here, it's so cool. So how come? Don't know lah. That was the response. But actually the developer had used those lightweight concrete blocks to save money. Because for a high-rise building, you need less steel bars and structural concrete. He saved nearly 1 million ringgit with that. And mortar, you need less mortar. The individual brick is more expensive than a clay brick or a cement brick. But if you look at the total cost per square meter and the savings you get through a lightweight structure, you actually have a cheaper cost of construction than if you would use the conventional way. And the residents there didn't know that they had used this. So this is an example of one simple measure that doesn't cost more, that can actually make a hot building where people switch on the aircon straight away into a building that people have enough thermal comfort that they feel comfortable to not switch on the aircon by just using a bit of wind, or they just feel relaxed about it because the temperature is lower. But the best example of green buildings that I have seen, and this is linked to one of the statements Prof made earlier on as well, and they used some rainwater harvesting as well, is a Singaporean building. And if you're ever in Singapore, check it out. United World College Singapore. And I think the secret to that was they had a holistic approach and a strong project manager. Because I was blown away, they went radically green and they saved 7% of construction cost. 7% of construction cost. Their goal was not to get certified to a green building standard. They got platinum certification because they did the right things. But that was not their key goal. Often nowadays the key goal of people is architectural design is finished, engineering plans are finished, let's get a green certification, add on, 5, 10, 15% higher cost. I remember one presentation I gave at a conference a year ago. There was one of the universities here, and the presenter said, oh, we couldn't go green because the proposal from our consultant would have made our building 15% more expensive to go green. Now something is wrong there. Particularly, and this comes from this add-on approach. So what they did in Singapore, the project manager brought everyone together. Architect, engineer, contractor. Okay, we're all working together with one goal: maximum green building. If you don't work together on this goal, you're out. That's your high priority deliverable as our service provider. We get a service from you and we want you all to work together at the planning stage of this building to optimize the environmental and efficiency features of the building. So they have done simple things like, normally you have the cold water pipes going through your building and they go like this to hide them, right? So you have a lot of bends. So you need a 5 horsepower motor to push the cold water through the building. This guy said, engineer, make them as straight as possible, like Mother Nature. Even if we can see them, and if you go to the loading bay where the buses come in to bring the students to the school, you can see them there. Make them as straight as possible so we've got minimum resistance. Toilets, very interesting. You stand there, you wash your hands, and you look at the motorway or the forest. Open air. They saved the concrete for the walls, and they saved the ducts and the pumps that usually will make sure that the not so nice air and smelly air is exchanged with fresh air. Apparently the engineer used to say we cannot do this because it's required by Singaporean law to have such ducts in a building like this. So they didn't accept legal given, they actually talked with the regulator and said we're not going to deliver the fresh air from the duct, we are going to deliver the fresh air from Mother Nature because we're going to have an open system, an open wall. We're going to have a bit of green feature there as well. All the classrooms are inside facing. The guy said, I saved 1 million Singapore dollars because I don't need blinds. I have no glare problem. Often what we have is, we have nice glasses, we look at natural light harvesting, but then the glare comes in and people block the area. You see that with a lot of Malaysian buildings as well, even famous green high-end buildings, where the idea is natural light harvesting, but then you see all the windows blocked with blinds. So he said 1 million Singapore dollars saved on blinds alone. His whole lighting system was energy efficient, but he said normally a building like this, they have 15, 20, 30 different lighting systems. I standardized it. One system, depending on the lux we need, that's the light inside of the room that you actually, where you have measurements. I think we need about 300, 500 lux, right? For a comfortable working environment. So they calculated it, they used one standard lighting system, and then just added additional ones. They got it from a Malaysian supplier, and because they bought very high volume, they got a massive volume discount. If he would have bought all different lighting systems, I would have let architects, engineers, and other people come up with all sorts of fancy stuff. It would have been very costly for him. So these guys brought everyone together, made sure there was strong project management, and engineers, architects, everyone worked together. And you identified the problem that there's often no collaboration or no awareness. These guys hired people that have the awareness and forced them to work together as part of their contractual requirements. If you don't put into your contract that you expect the engineer, the contractor, and the architect to deliver on these goals, how can you expect them to deliver it? Usually then we have the problem, contractors will say, no, cannot. If you want to do this, gonna be more expensive. Slow me down. So we need to get it right holistically from day one to get the right strategy. Now, I would like you to just spend 2 minutes to discuss with your neighbor, how can we, from what we learned today, take things into your projects, your research, or Malaysia as a whole to get implementation on these fronts. Because I am very worried, most residential in particular, commercial is already a bit better, people are putting more green features into commercial buildings, but residential buildings in particular, we are locking in inefficient buildings that will require aircon for the next 30, 40, 50 years and that have no rainwater harvesting. And who wants nuclear power plants? Oh, nobody here? How come? I thought Malaysia needs 2 or 3 nuclear power plants in the next to 8 years to cater for the increased demand in energy, both at a commercial and residential level. So how come nobody wants, but nobody is doing anything about it? So, okay, 2 minutes, just have a quick chat with your neighbor. How can we make it happen in Malaysia to get real traction, real results on efficient energy, rainwater harvesting, and green buildings in Malaysia? Okay? Then I'll interview some of you and then we have our final panel discussion. So I'll give you 2 minutes time. Actually, I would ask the panel members to already join me here, because I've just seen that the time is already further ahead than I thought it was. So don't worry. Maybe the panel members can already start joining me while you have a quick discussion. Then I would like 2 or 3 of you to actually share your conclusions from your discussion, and then we will do a wrapping up discussion with the panel. I want to see results from our workshop here. I want to see results from the time we are spending here today. Okay, my friends, before more people run away for a toilet break, I keep an eye on you, don't worry. Who has got a good suggestion? Who came up with anything good? Yes. I'll give you the microphone.
Okay, thank you. Since you mentioned in terms of the heat, especially in the residential area, I was suggesting that it has to be put as a mandatory to be, or to make MS 15-5 on energy efficiency to be a mandatory subject in the Uniform Building Bylaw. So the reason I said that is actually once you have introduced this in the Uniform Building Bylaw, so you have already reached a minimum of, in terms of the energy efficiency input, as well reaching to a certified green, but not reaching the silver or gold or platinum, but we have reached the minimum requirement.
Okay, thank you so much. Very interesting suggestion. I'll ask the panel members later what they think about that. I think that's a very practical way forward, because the standard is there already. We've got it. It's already a conclusion from the stakeholders in the industry, and often standards are the most fastest way of implementing it. Maybe one more comment from any of you?
Actually, the rainwater harvesting have to implement by the local authorities, because the development order is from the local authorities. They all the contractors, developer have to submit their development order. Then local council have to emphasize whether the rainwater harvesting have to implement on that development or not.
I think that's a very good suggestion as well, to go through the approval process and make sure in areas that are flood prone or where there is a shortage of water in the future, we can actually push it in through there. But then we might need incentives, which we discussed earlier about, to actually make that happen, because the developer or the builder might say, hey, you are giving me extra costs, what do I get in return? That's always the chicken and egg situation. So I would appreciate if you could just comment as well with what can we take home from today that we should implement. Maybe just 2 or 3 key points, like results, like conclusions, that should provide us with an effective strategy for implementing these issues in Malaysia, to make the country more efficient, to give people a better quality environment to live in, and to avoid Malaysia to spend loads and loads of money in the future on additional power plants and additional water supply that will be very, very costly for people and reduce the competitiveness of the country. Actually, that trend is against 2020 vision. Those countries that are higher developed, they've usually increased their energy and water and resource efficiency. Malaysia might go the other way, and I think that is not in line with the vision where Malaysia wants to go: more efficiency, more productivity, more competitiveness. So it might even risk that future 2020 vision target, in my opinion. But that's just a personal view. I'm not a macroeconomic expert, but just based on some things that I've observed. So your comments?
Okay, thank you. I'm looking at the role of CIDB actually. I like to compare CIDB to BCA of Singapore if in terms of housing or building industry. If CIDB were to be given the same kind of authority, then that would be, we can get things implemented. And at the moment, I think Malaysia has too many authorities over similar objectives in almost all aspects. I think we have very good laws, very good regulations, very good objectives, but when it comes to implementation, I think we somehow fail to really realize these good intentions. This is my general comment. So I'm looking at maybe CIDB can play in terms of building construction industry a more central role, given more authority, similar to the BCA, just general.
Okay, that's another interesting point of view. I don't know whether we have any comments from the audience on that subject. Should CIDB be given more power to execute, enforce and standardize? Yes.
Thank you very much. My name is Fazil. I like to I take a different point of view to this. I think the critical issue is it does not lie with the organization. I think it's more than that. I think what is really worrying within our construction industry is the value that the stakeholders are putting on and portraying it to the society. I think in many cases, Malaysians are not like Germany or UK, where the society at large are very educated and they're very aware about environment and so on and so forth. Yeah, I think Malaysia, we're still on the learning curve. But what is actually worrying is that I think the onus here lies in all the major stakeholders. It's not just CIDB. It's the professional institutions, it's the academic institutions, it's the authorities, and it's everybody. No, just one organization does not make an industry. Yeah. So I think what tends to worry me is because the value system that seems to underpin our development process, our educational process, and so on and so forth. So on this, I think the stakeholders need to root carefully into their philosophical beliefs about what values that they carry when they go on further development. Thank you.
So just for clarification, Fazil, are you saying that at the moment not enough value is given to preservation of Mother Nature, the value that Mother Nature delivers to the country in terms of economic value, and it's just short-term exploitation and maximization of profit that is driving everything? Is that?
Yes. Yeah. But I think more importantly is that I think what the professional institutions, the educationalists, the authorities, what values underpin what they actually do? You know, how do you define what is a green building, for example? What do you underpin in your education system when you put into designs and all those things? I think those are fundamental issues, I think, which culminated to what we have until what we have today.
I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think formally in the Malaysian education system there is any clear environmental component in the curriculum. And I had that discussion with a minister who wanted to push it, and even that minister told me he was not able to get through with the education department in creating any changes. So there isn't even a basic component in the core curriculum on these subjects.
Yes.
So what to do lah? Actually, I had another discussion with my friend who is quite an influential strategist in the political scene, and he said we need to get a lot of members of parliament ask the question, why don't we have any environmental component in the curriculum? So if you are close to any of your members of parliament, elected representatives, or if you meet the people vying for votes in your constituency ahead of the next election, maybe you can remind them green counts. Because if I look at it from Germany, in Germany, the realization of the political parties that voters give a strong emphasis on green issues led to all the parties in Germany coming up with green strategies, green policies, green enforcement. Now in Germany, green technology industry has more jobs than the automotive industry. The automotive industry in Germany, Porsche, BMW, Mercedes, Audi, Volkswagen, you name it, very famous. But more jobs now in the green technology industry than in the automotive industry. Malaysian economy, oil, gas, timber, tourism, palm oil, very much relying on Mother Nature's productivity. I think it's time to shift to high-value economy, research-based outputs, technology, and I think green technology is great for that. Green building is great for that, but we need to create demand. We need to make it happen on the ground. So education, philosophy, mindset of the industry. When I came to Malaysia, the first few years, I talked about green living, green thinking. I had the impression nobody is interested. So I switched to how can we make money from green. More people were listening. But still, I don't see a big change. So I think we still have your views on the key points that we can take for action.
Well, I will only touch on the rainwater harvesting. Yes, I agree with the lady just now, saying that this local authority has to play the role in the implementation of this rainwater harvesting. But on top of that, the implementing agencies, which involved in the development of our country, such as PWD, DID, because this under the new uniform building bylaws into 2011, whereby the bungalows, semi-Ds, and as well as the government buildings are required to put up the rainwater harvesting system. So these particular agencies are the main player, which are supposed to make sure that this the bylaws are being carried out. And besides also the research institution, CRIM, Nahrim, and other institutions also should play roles to carry out more research on this the usage of this rainwater harvesting, and also the for the people out there, more on the awareness, public awareness is also, I think, is an important point, whereby the community has also plays their roles, so that it can be this rainwater harvesting system can be successfully implemented and carried out.
Okay, so any question from the audience? Any comments? Any burning issues? Any revelations that might help us? Yes, the lady there, maybe you can take the microphone.
Hello, Mr. Matthias. I'm Roshana Takim from UITM Shah Alam. I have heard many good stories regarding green building, success stories, beautiful stories, and so on. I'm not a green lady, but somehow rather I am contradict with your ideas, right? For example, you are happy, the contractor is happy, saving 20%, the client is happy, saving the cost 30%. I would like to take, for example, there is the space U8 in Shah Alam, that it is a green building. You compare with the Setia City Mall. There is not a green building. When you look from the commercial part, a commercial commercial view, you can see, many traders in Setia City Mall, they are making money. But when comes Space U8, no many people would like to come to that place. If I am a trader, I'm running at loss. What are you saying regarding this building, green building? Green building is only a story. It's good for the contractor. It's not good for me as a trader. Thank you.
Thank you, not yet so green lady. I will try and make you additionally green as well. That's a very interesting question, a very interesting case study. I think I heard Setia claims that their mall is green as well, but I have to verify that. I agree with you, U8 has done a big hoo-ha in the branding, it's green. They have done some interesting things. About the tires under the floor, I'm not yet so sure how effective that is. But they have the big fans, and exactly. they are trying to have that as a natural cooling feature. But I don't have the impression that they did a very holistic approach in their planning. Plus, if you're in the wrong location, or if a project doesn't start off on the right footing, then, you know, and I have been there once at a green event. They asked me to speak there, and the crowd was very small. I could see that the traders were not making money because there were no customers there. And, you know, there's a fine line between green building, green branding, green marketing. Some people even call it greenwashing. I am not saying U8 did greenwashing. They did some very good green measures. But you need to get your project commercially right. Otherwise, whether it's green or not green, it's going to run at a loss. And I have told this a lot of people in Malaysia as well. I'm giving a workshop on Thursday in Penang on how to become a successful green entrepreneur. And one thing that is for sure, if you think you're going to sell your product, you're going to sell your office or residential houses just because you've got a green tag, forget it. People do not buy green for the sake of green in Malaysia yet. Even in Europe, if you have a green product and it's 20% more expensive, you will struggle to sell unless there is a good ROI or there is a government incentive. There must be something in it for me. Organic food in Germany is just a little bit more expensive than normal food because masses of people buy it. But they buy it because they don't want to get cancer. And that is not, if you eat organic you don't get cancer. The truth is not that simple. It's a very complex thing. But it definitely gives you more reassurance. And I don't want to know how much contamination we have from the vegetables coming from Cameroon Highlands. You know, like half a year ago, there was some spillage of pesticides and all the local fishes died. In Germany, I can read a magazine every month called Öko-Test, independent, funded by the readers. They test everything, and if this supermarket has contaminated fruits, you can read it in there. That's why most of the German shops have a very aggressive supply chain management. Here in Malaysia, I don't know whether anyone checks how much pesticides is in our food that we are eating. So coming back to the main story, I agree with you that in that case, the supposedly very green branded mall is not working. And the other mall seems to be working. But, you know, these things depend on a lot of different factors. They have to do with management, investment, what you expect. And that is an example how it went wrong. But I don't think it went wrong just because they went green. Maybe it's the wrong location. Maybe it's the wrong concept. I had a little chat with them what can be done to make this a green hub, but I didn't have the impression that they have the resources to get it right. Sometimes you need to invest significant money to change the direction of a location. If you don't have the money to invest, you will never be able to change the direction of the location. Or you might come to the conclusion the place in itself has no hope. So, I don't know. But don't take that comparative example as evidence of green works or doesn't work. The truth is complex, and commercial success is depending on a lot of different factors. But thank you for that very interesting example. I think that's a great example. But if I'm not mistaken, but I think Setia Shah Alam Mall claims they are a green building as well. Can anyone? Yeah. No? No? Are you sure? Because I remember my friend told me that they claimed they were even certified to Green Building Index, but I'm not sure. Let me find out. Give me your not so green card and I will send you an email. My card is made from palm fiber waste. No tree was chopped to make my business card. Just kidding, no, it's the truth. There are a lot of small areas where we can go green. Most of the time people tell me, well, your cards must be very expensive. Yes, they're more expensive than the very, very cheap ones, but I've spoken with universities. Universities usually have not so cheap contractors, maybe because somebody's friend is supplying the service. And mine cost 35 ringgit, a box of 100, double printed with color, so it's not as expensive as people think. And I get it from Shah Alam. Okay, I think we have to wrap it up. Let me just say in conclusion, thank you very much for all the active participation, great presentations, a lot of content. I hope you can, within your area of influence, implement some of it. I think we need more green education in the school, in the system, in the professional education, and we need to have a focus on value and return. If we don't create value, then people will drop. I like the idea of using the Malaysian standard on energy efficiency as something that we can push, but sometimes when we push standards or certification, people only do it because they are required to do it, and then we don't get the optimized solution and value for money. I was chairing another conference on facilities management. One guy from a shopping mall was saying, hey, there was a government representative there. Why do we need to have these energy efficiency guys? If you have over a certain level of energy consumption, you need to have those. Are you just gonna make us spend more money? The requirement for these guys is they have to write a report. But there's no requirement that the results of the report have to be implemented to achieve energy efficiency to reduce the cost of operation. That's the idea behind it, but it's not a requirement of the system. And when you force something as legislation, people will get a consultant in who writes a report, that costs money, the report will sit on the shelf. So I think we all need to work together for the benefit of Malaysia, for the benefit of the planet. We have great researchers in Malaysia. We have CREAM and all the good work that is done there. We have evidence it works. Rainwater harvesting, passive cooling, different solutions. Let's make it happen. Let's put more emphasis on implementation. And you know, when you meet your representative before the election, you know, tell him how important the environment is for you. Hopefully that way we can influence as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matthias. I think we've come to the end of the conference this evening, and I believe it's been a very challenging one for Matthias to keep everyone alert, and I'm sure we are very grateful and thankful that he has managed to do that with the group of speakers. So once again, let us give him a round of applause for the wonderful